Hey folks, welcome back to Ken Michaels Radio, where we talk about the Beatles here, any part of their legendary careers, their days together, the solo years, the music, the tours, any aspect of the Beatles we cover here on my channel. And I can't tell you how delighted I am to have as a special guest this time out Gregg Bissonette, who has been a part of Ringo and the All-Star Band tours since 2008. I can't believe it's been that long, but there have been so many tremendous shows through the years that we witnessed, and a lot of great lineups too through the years with the All Stars. We're also celebrating the release of Ringo Starr and his All Star Band live at the Greek Theater 2019. And we just had Joe Thomas on my channel, who was a producer for both the audio and the video as well. It's available on CD, DVD, Blu ray, and yellow vinyl, limited edition. So, Gregg, welcome to my channel.
Thank you, Ken. And yeah, what an honor that has just come out. That show was so much fun, and there were so many guests that came up at the end. We always end, as you know, with Little Help, and then we go into Give Peace a Chance, and it was so much fun. It was kind of like a homecoming. We had Edgar Winters on the tour now, but he wasn't on the 19 tour, but he came out. Richard Page was there, Joe Walsh,
Eric Carmen.
Eric Carmen was there, Wally Palmer from the Romantics. I have to watch the end again and see who all came out, but a lot of friends came out.
Yeah, and Jim Keltner played drums.
Jim Keltner came out. Who else? There were a lot of other people.
We'll have to watch the video again.
Yeah, we got to watch the video. And I know there were other. Richard Page. I said Richard.
Was Rick Derringer there?
I don't think Rick was at that show. As we're going, I might think of some others.
Okay. Well, why don't we just start by telling the folks how this whole thing happened about you working with Ringo. And actually, before you joined the All-Stars, you were helping out Ringo when he was with the Roundheads.
Yeah, and my brother, who you just talked to, who's been Elton John's bass player for the last 15 years, he was in Ringo and the Roundheads too. I remember we played on Leno, Jay Leno. We did the song that was to George.
Never Without You.
Without You. What a beautiful song about George. And we did that. We also did a video, and we played the Bottom Line Club in New York City before it became part of New York University, NYU. It's now not a club anymore. It's part of NYU, but that was a super fun club. I played there years ago with Matt, with Maynard Ferguson, and we played there. We also did a show in Illinois near Chicago, and you can YouTube it. It's called Ringo and the Roundheads Soundstage.
Right. This is the one at the Genesee Theater.
The Genesee Theater.
Yep.
Very good. You know your stuff.
Wow, that's a fantastic CD that I have. Great sounding CD too. So yeah, but how did you get the gig in the first place to work with Ringo?
I got the gig because I had told friends of mine that I was doing seminars on Ringo for years around the world, telling people that Ringo's my favorite drummer. And word got around, and Bruce Sugar, who was the engineer for Mark Hudson, who produced, I think, several Ringo albums. Sure. They were working on a Steven Tyler album, and I got a call around midnight, and it was, hey, can you come down and play drums on a Steven Tyler song? And I said, yeah, I'll be there at 9 a.m. They said, well, how about right now? And it was about midnight. And I said, oh, well, and they said, well, Ringo's drums are still here, one of his kits. I said, man, I'll be down right now. That'd be a blast to play on one of his Ludwig kits. So I bolted down to Santa Monica from the Conejo Valley where I live, and played on this shuffle. It was a and Mark Hudson was producing Steven Tyler, and it was a drum machine. So instead of getting sounds for Bruce Sugar by hitting the bass drum for 5 minutes, and the snare, then the rack tom. That's how it goes in the studio. Let me hear the floor tom. okay, now your cymbals. I said, I'm just going to play every Ringo groove I can think of, starting with Ticket to Ride. So he's getting the kick and the snare and the rack tom, then come together. Both toms, 4-piece kit. But when Ringo played it, he played it on a 5-piece kit. George had bought Ringo a Hollywood drum set, the maple drum set that's on the roof on Get Back. So 2 rack toms on the floor. And Ringo says he went up, even though the sound the heads were a little detuned. You can't really tell the pitches. He says he went up. So that's all I need to know. He's a left-handed drummer. He went up. But when I go on my 4-piece kit with 2 toms, a really cool thing to watch, Ken. Have you seen Ringo's masterclass yet on masterclass.com?
I haven't yet.
It kind of blows me away. I can go to the Beatle Fest, where supposedly the biggest Beatle fans ever are collected. I can do seminars there. I can talk to guys like you. Tom Frangione is one of the only guys I know who's a total Beatle nut like we are, and a Ringo nut. And he goes, oh, of course I've seen Masterclass. I've watched it 4 times. If you, as a fan of Ringo, want to know a lot about Ringo that you've never dreamed of knowing, about his childhood, about being in the hospital, about how they came in and they gave them a choice of instruments and he picked the drum, about how his stepdad, Harry, was playing big band stuff, got him into Sarah Vaughan, why Cozy Cole was one of his favorites, why he loves the floor tom. So many insights on Ringo. It's a long, beautiful masterclass. And I was honored to be able to come up with the questions and get to interview him and play drums with them. And if you go to masterclass.com and just watch the Ringo thing, amazing, amazing insights. It was filmed at the Troubadour in Hollywood, in Santa Monica, on Santa Monica Boulevard, West Hollywood. They rented out the Troubadour. Masterclass rented out the Troubadour. Spent a lot of money redoing that stage, the lights. It looks phenomenal. It sounds phenomenal. Bruce Sugar engineered the sound. It sounds so great. And there's a jam at the end with Joe Walsh, Steve Lukather, Jim Keltner, Jim Cox, Nathan East, and Ringo and I. And it's blowing me away that more Beatle fanatics like us haven't seen it.
I will make it a point to see it as soon as I can.
Are you married or single?
I'm married.
Tell your wife you want a subscription to Masterclass, at least to watch the Ringo thing, and then cancel.
No, she's a first-generation fan. In fact, she got to see the Beatles live in 1966, as you did. She was at DC Stadium. You were at Olympia Stadium, right? In Detroit.
That's right, Olympia Hockey Arena in Detroit, Michigan, where the Detroit Red Wings play. My dad, Bud, was a jazz drummer in Detroit. My mom, Phyllis, used to play jazz vibes with his band. My Aunt Carol played piano with his band. My brother, Matt, my sister, Kathy, and I were all musical. We love the Beatles. My sister's favorite of all time, which I love also, is the Osmond Brothers. She is such a Donny Osmond fanatic. Matt and I got her tickets to go to Vegas at Harris and see Donnie 2 weeks ago for her birthday. But anyway, she was a little young to go see the Beatles, but my brother was 5 and I was 7, and my dad came home with tickets because the story is he was playing this gig, playing a wedding in Detroit at the Ambassador Hotel, and he came out into the lobby and he just saw thousands of girls screaming, Ken. And he said to his friend, the food and beverage manager, I remember he said his name was Bob. He said, Bob, what is going on here? He said, Bud, the Beatles are staying upstairs. The Beatles. Oh my gosh. My kids love the Beatles. My wife and I love the Beatles. And my dad, in his outgoing people person way, said, Bob, any chance of getting me 6 tickets for tomorrow? And Bob said, Bud, are you out of your mind? It's the Beatles, man. They've been sold out for 6 months. Impossible, but you're a good guy. Come back into the bar after the gig and I'll see what I can do. My dad at 1 a.m., the wedding's over, packs up his stuff, comes into the bar. But I got great news and bad news. I got you 6 tickets, but it's going to cost you $36, $6 a ticket. He said, oh man, I'm making 50 on the gig. I'll clear $14. Hey kids, we're going to see the Beatles. And we went and saw the Beatles the next night at Olympia Hockey Arena. And they either ended with I'm Down, or they would end with we're gonna have some fun tonight, Long Tall Sally. And I think the night we were there, they ended with I'm Down, the same as they did with Shea Stadium, where John's cracking up playing the organ. Anyway, what a night that. Does your wife talk about it?
Oh, all the time.
Where was the gig she saw?
At DC Stadium, August 15th.
No, that was 64, the first DC show.
64. No, the one in 66, August 15th.
But the first time they played live in America, besides Ed Sullivan,
was
in DC.
Coliseum. Right? Yep. The
Coliseum.
Washington Coliseum.
Same place?
No.
Different place.
This was the DC, that was a stadium, actual DC Stadium was
the first one.
No, the Washington Coliseum was the first, but that was much smaller. It only fit a few thousand people.
Because it was the first show.
Yeah.
Yeah. But she saw the stadium in 66.
Yeah. And she's always telling me it's the greatest day of her life. You know?
Wow.
More so than when we got married. So, but
man, that's kind of a kicker. How many years you been married?
20.
You got to think about it.
I guess.
How many years?
20.
My next door neighbor's been married 65 years. They were an older couple. I said, how did you stay married so long? What's the secret? He said, well, the secret to our happily married life of 65 years is that 4 nights a week, every week, we'd go out to dinner and dancing. I go Monday, Wednesday. She goes Tuesday, Thursday.
You know, what a cool thing that your whole family loved the Beatles. You could share that with your parents. I mean, you know, and at that time, I mean, usually you would think that it's just the youth that are into them, but your parents were, it seems to me like coming from a musical family, your parents, your brothers, your sister, they appreciated everything.
Well, yeah, because my parents were musicians and they had a very, very diverse record collection. Every night at dinner, they would play classical albums. And then after dinner, my dad would always grab us, and he'd grab me because I was the drummer and he's a drummer. And we'd take album covers with brushes. And he'd say, let's dig some jazz. And we'd sit down on the shag carpeting by the console stereo. I'm 63. How old are you?
62.
So you can remember console stereos on legs with the speakers. You open up the case, you put the record in, you put the needle down, and he would put on, drop the needle in the middle of a Stan Kenton album, or Maynard Ferguson, or Buddy Rich, or Bud Shank, or the Woody Herman Band, or Duke Ellington, or Count Basie, or Dave Brubeck. And we would sit there. I'd have my album cover, and album covers actually on shag carpeting sound pretty good for brushes. And we'd play, and he'd have his after dinner drink, and I'd be sitting there with my Pepsi or something, and we'd be hanging out for hours listening to all kinds of different music. And I was telling my friends at the Beatles channel last week that I remember one time coming home, and my dad had a bread route. Do you remember Tasty Bread?
Yeah.
Big in Detroit, really big in Detroit. He came home from his bread route, and I was playing over and over and over the 45 of Revolution. Ringo, bop, and the scream, yeah! Say you want to remember. And my dad said, you know, you should flip that 45 over. The other song on the other side's really cool. I've been hearing it a lot on the radio. And I said, really? And I flipped it. You know what it was? The other side of Revolution?
Hey, Jude.
Hey, Jude. I'm like, duh. Wow, Dad, this is a cool song too. And so they encouraged us for Christmas, for birthdays. They'd buy us Beatle albums. I remember my uncle, my dad's brother, for my birthday one year, he got me the Beatles second album. Kind of the sepia color with all the photographs, you know.
Sure.
I know. Man. I'm talking to a Beatle nut here.
No, but it's telling me a lot about you, because your career, you have recorded in so many different styles of music, rock and roll, jazz, Latin music. This all comes from your youth growing up and being exposed to all this stuff.
Yeah, if it wasn't for my parents being so into loving different kinds of music and taking us to see shows, the same week that I saw the Beatles, I think I saw Count Basie. Count Basie, the big bands, Count Basie, Duke Ellington wasn't playing by that time, but Count Basie, Woody Herman, Maynard Ferguson, Stan Kenton, Buddy Rich, Don Ellis. These bands would do US tours on a bus. I was in that bus with Matt on Maynard Ferguson's band. Matt was there 2 years, I was there 1 year, and we would play high school theaters. And so, yeah, we would hear. I remember the Basie band came out, and I looked at my mom. I said, Mom, this is going to be kind of boring. You know, I was like 7 years old. She said, you wait, watch. And Count Basie comes out, and he's playing one finger. Barino. I'm going, Barino. All of a sudden, he makes a gun with his fingers, and he points to the trombone section, and they stand up. And the drummer, Rufus Jones, Harold Rufus Jones, I think was his name. And they all stood up, and I went, this is rock and roll. And I thought, big bands are powerful. And that's when I got the bug for big bands. I also loved the band Chicago, the horn band, and Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and Chase. And of course, Maynard Ferguson was always my favorite big band. Buddy Rich, what a hero. And when I got with Maynard, Matt was already with Maynard. That's another story we could talk about. But when I got that gig, sometimes we'd play double bills with Buddy Rich. Buddy never wanted to go on first. They'd flip a coin. And if he had to go on first, he was bugged. And he'd say, well, you can hang around for the next group. But Maynard was more, we played a lot of bebop, a lot of Latin, like you're saying. But we played Hey Jude. We played MacArthur Park, Herbie Hancock's Chameleon, theme from Rocky. That was a Maynard thing too. And so we had a lot of the high school kids that were kind of rockers that were in jazz bands. So what a blast that was. That's a whole other chapter.
Yeah. Well, apart from playing the drums, you also played the trumpet.
Yeah, I started trumpet in 5th grade. I think there were too many drummers in the school band. So the band director said to my mom, are there any other instruments he'd like to play? And I said, yeah, trumpet. I loved Herb Albert. Herb Albert to me was so musical, right?
I mean, I played the trumpet too throughout school and college, and Herb Albert was the man. And also in the 60s, we had Al Hirt.
Al Hirt. I loved Al Hirt.
Yeah.
My favorite of all time is Maynard Ferguson. But Al Hirt, Herb Albert, those albums, especially the one Whipped Cream. That album, oh boy. Yeah. I go into Charlie Callis when I look at that. Herb Albert, Whipped Cream, and Other Delights. Anyway, and what Beatles song did he cover?
Covered several. He covered All My Lovin'.
Herb Albert did?
Yep.
I didn't know.
You Want a Brass, he covered With Little Help from My Friends.
What?
Sure.
The one I'm thinking about is oh,
okay.
A Taste of Honey.
I know, but the strange thing about that is that being familiar with the Beatles song and hearing Herb Albert, I never connected the two as a little kid because Herb Albert's arrangement was so unique. I mean, obviously later on, it's like, oh, how could I not know it's the same song? But great thing about Herb Albert were the arrangements to his songs. They were so different.
And the album cover of Whipped Cream.
Yes.
Hey, Buddy Rich did an arrangement of Norwegian Wood. He's playing a Beatles song.
Well, the great thing about those songs is that they lend themselves to so many arrangements. So there's a lot of great jazz covers. You know, I always loved Ramsey Lewis.
What about William Shatner?
That's the ultimate in jazz right there.
It is the ultimate. But, you know, he actually years ago, he had a failed business. I don't know if anybody ever tells you about it, but it was a failed women's underwear line. Did you ever hear about that?
No.
The marketing people screwed it up. The name just didn't go. It was called Shatner Underwear.
You've got a second career coming. I can see it.
Okay. Here we go.
But anyway.
But I digress.
As far as Ringo is concerned, let's first of all talk about the Greek Theater. Almost all of Ringo's tours end there. Why is it that particular venue? Is there something special about it? I talked to Joe Thomas about it. What are your thoughts about it?
It's my favorite venue in the world.
Hmm.
It's in our hometown, Los Angeles, the music capital of the world. People talk about Nashville, music city. They talk about New York City. They talk about London, San Francisco, Bill Graham. LA, I make a living playing music in this town, and I'm never leaving. I mean, they can raise the taxes like they've been doing, and they probably will keep doing, but I'm not leaving. Ken, I love LA. I love LA. But anyway, I love the Dodgers. I love LA. I love the Greek Theater. My family comes to the gig, my friends. You get these beautiful trees. You look out. And the great thing about why I wanted to move to California as a kid in snowy, gloomy Detroit, I'd be watching the Rose Bowl like we will in a few weeks and going, it's January 1st and there's nothing but slush. And I go outside and I fall on my butt in the driveway because it's ice and my hands are frozen, And Detroit's great, great music town, Motown and everything. But I'd look at it and say, it's sunny and 75 degrees and there's not a cloud in the sky. And the Partridge Family and the Brady Bunch and One Adam 12. That's where I want to live. And I do. And that's where the Greek Theater is. So why not go all over the world and end at home and sleep in your own bed?
And now you got Ringo living in LA. So what more do you want?
That's why I think we end in LA.
All right. You just said that Ringo is your favorite drummer of all time.
Absolutely.
I mean, that is a show all to itself, but if you can, fine tune it a little bit and say why specifically Ringo, and how he has influenced you as a drummer. Go into that if you can.
Okay, here we go. I'm going to use you as a bro here. How many Beatles songs on albums have been released so far? I know there's a lot of outtakes and everything else, but if you take 250, what's the number?
I never actually counted it. I think it's something around like 215 to 220, something like that.
Okay, let's say on the low side, 215 songs with another drummer. Those wouldn't sound like those songs. They just wouldn't, because they wouldn't have that swing. Ringo, I think one of his biggest attributes is his swing. And again, you can point to his childhood, and his stepdad, Harry, got him into big bands, got him into Sarah Vaughan. And he was never a guy that would say, oh, that stuff you're listening to. He would just say, have you heard this? Again, watch Ringo Starr Masterclass on masterclass.com. But he just swings. Take a song like Strawberry Fields. Are you a musician too? Do you play anything?
Well, I play basic guitar and piano, but my main instrument was the trumpet.
Can you read music?
Oh, yeah.
So you know how to count eighth notes?
Uh-huh.
How do you count eighth notes? What's the numbers and the letters?
What do you mean?
1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 2, 1, that.
1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and right.
Yeah.
And 16ths, 1 E and a 2 E and a.
Right.
Well, Strawberry Fields is a straight eighth note song. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Let me take you down. Straight eighth notes. 1 and 2 and, or if you're counting 16ths, 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2. There's no swing in that. Those are 16th notes or eighth notes. All music is either duple or triple. I'm not trying to be giving a music lesson, but when you ask me this question, I got to give you the honest answer. Music is either duple or triple. It's either 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 E and a 2 E and those are duple. You say you want a revolution. That's triple. Triplets. Okay, so Strawberry Fields is a straight eighth note song, but Ringo's fills are triple. As a kid, that just blew me away. 1 and let me take you. Most drummers would go like this, Ken. Let me take you down. Bang. Pop. Strawberry. That's playing a duple eighth note song straight. Ringo didn't do that on any of the Beatles songs. He took John's vocal. 1 and let me take you. strawberry, is a triplet feel. It's a swing.
Right.
So I don't care if it's Close Your Eyes, the first song they did on Ed Sullivan, or any song. She loves you, yeah. He didn't go 1, 2, loves you, yeah. He went 1, 2, she loves you. He's playing on the floor tom, because Cozy Cole and that big band, Topsy, that's where he got into drumming, that floor tom, like Gene Krupa. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's also not, it's you can pick any of those 215 songs. Ringo puts his swing on it. So for me, those songs would not be the same songs without Ringo.
Well, he always says that, his fills are what makes that's the art of a drummer, is what he does in the fills. So there's that. There's other aspects of his drumming. Like sometimes I've heard that less is more when you hold back and let the song speak for itself.
What about In My Life?
Yep.
One hi-hat per bar. Most people, there are places that they'd be playing. He doesn't do that. He goes, doom, bakum, wrong tempo. Don't ding, do 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 ding. Ba da da ba chika da chika. One hand. And my first time jamming with him in the Roundheads in 03, I said, Ringo, I got to ask you, how did you come up with that groove on In My Life? One hi-hat per bar. And he thought for a second and he said, I think I just did what I did on Anna.
Right.
Anna, and Arthur Alexander had that hit, and that's what the drummer did. And that's exactly what you said, less is more. Sometimes you don't need to fill things up. Sometimes it's the space that sounds so great. So even on the end, zap, boom, 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 the best 8 bars in drumming ever, as far as I'm concerned. Space and maturity at a young age. And a lot of drummers you see on YouTube these days, they never stop. You need to give the audience a chance to breathe and to go, wow. I mean, most of the people that watch that are going, ah, and they're in awe, but then soon they're in, because it's just too much. Ringo had that attention to detail about when to play, when not to. He had less is more. He had that swing. And one other thing that's super important is he's a left-handed drummer playing on a right-handed kit. And that just gives it a different feel. You listen to Rain. He's leading with his left hand on the hi-hat. Right-handed drummers don't do that. He's got his own feel, and nothing could be more fun than having him 5 feet away every night. And Ken, I've got a bird's eye view of his bass drum, his right foot, his left foot on the hi-hat, his left hand on the snare, his right hand playing. And, dynamically, as a trumpet player, dynamics, Italian dynamics, P for piano, M for mezzo forte, F for forte, double F fortissimo. You've got to bring the band up and down. Nobody in the band can do that more than the drummer. If the drummer's playing super loud, the band's got to be loud. But if the drummer comes way down and starts playing with cross stick or brushes, they got to play soft, the rest of the band, or they won't hear the tempo. So Ringo's playing in the middle of his snare drum. When he's playing verses, a lot of times, if this phone is your snare drum right here, he's playing right here in the middle. One pop, pop for the verses. When it comes to the snare, you hit the metal edge and the head at the same time. Conk, conk. Those are rim shots. So in the chorus, he's rim shotting, but he goes back to the verse in the middle. And that's the same thing where you'll hear drummers on the verses keep their hi-hats kind of closed tight. And then the B sections of the chorus, they'll open it up more. Man, Ringo does that. He brings the band down, up and down. And you can listen over and over and over to Beatles songs. You don't hear them slow down or speed up. Most other bands, now everything's with a click track and Pro Tools, but on tape, they did a lot of takes of songs, but because Ringo's time, his feel is so solid, they could do 20 takes of a song. They could cut things in. His tempo is so great. But the four of them, they had band time. When they're playing together, even the Shea Stadium show, when they can't even hear each other, they're watching each other. They were brothers and they knew each other so well that it's locked. And if it did move a little bit here or there, they moved together and nothing feels weird. A drummer nowadays playing with a click track. If the guitar is rushing a little bit, it's very noticeable. In Led Zeppelin, John Bonham always held down the fort right here. Jimmy Page, in my estimation, always played a little bit on top of the beat, but that tension was cool, but it kind of made John Bonham sound even heavier. Gosh, if it keeps on right, it just made him sound heavier. But the Beatles were just bam. They were like the four-headed monster.
Couple things. How difficult is it? There's a lot of Beatles songs where the time signature changes.
Absolutely.
Like Happiness is a Warm Gun.
Oh, so hard.
Good Morning, Good Morning.
Absolutely.
How difficult is that to play as a drummer?
I was probably, I don't remember what grade, maybe seventh grade, maybe eighth grade. I don't remember what grade, but this local guitar player, good friend of ours, came over and he had just gotten I Dig a Pony. And he's trying to, we didn't have the record yet, but he's going, oh man, I'm going to show you this thing. And my brother and I, we were playing Smoke on the Water. We could play I Can't Do That. Should have known better. We could even play boom, boom, pop, Sgt. Pepper. Brian, what are you doing? He goes, oh. Later I found out, well, that's in 3. But the way it was so melodically deceptive with the meter, or you can listen to Here Comes the Sun. Here comes the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 3, 8. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And that's coming from Ravi Shankar and Alaraka and going to India and George being into the Indian complex rhythm of the sitar and the tabla and everything. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Bang. Wait a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So if you think about it, 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, 3 bars of 3, 8, 1 bar of 2, 8, a bar of 4, 4, and then a bar of 7, 8. Here comes a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here comes a. That is hard. And I know from talking to Ringo a lot about this stuff. None of those guys were counting. You played trumpet in the public school system. So did I. We learned how to read, C sharp, D, E flat, and we learned how to read notes and rhythms and time signatures. They didn't know how to do that. They would travel across Liverpool because some guy knew how to play some chord they didn't know how to play, and they wanted to learn it. And a bus ride. That hunger. Well, man, go to India, and all of a sudden you're learning from the masters about odd times, and you come back and you put that into Here Comes the Sun. Mind-blowing, Ken. Mind-blowing.
I know. Also, the Beatles were so diverse in all their musical styles. The fact that Ringo could play drums to Helter Skelter 1 minute and then Honey Pie the next, attests
Absolutely.
to,
Brushes.
how versatile. Yep.
Yeah, Brushes. How about When I'm 64? The clarinet, the diversity. And you think about the great classical composers. The great classical composers, take Bach. I mean, he was very familiar with his own German roots and German classical music, but he loved English classical music, Italian classical music of Vivaldi. He loved the French classical music. They listened to everybody. Lots of rock bands, they just listen to other rock bands. Lots of jazz bands, only listen to other jazz bands. Lots of Afro-Cuban bands, Brazilian bands, country bands. They only listen to their genre. The Beatles grew up in Liverpool with parents like Paul's dad, the sing-alongs around the piano at 24th Road, and Harry playing the big band stuff, and even John had his Aunt Mimi's, and George with his guitar traveling on the bus, and then they're playing at the Fate, Anyway, they listened to Chuck Berry, they listened to Elvis, Little Richard. They played at the Cavern, but they played in Germany with all these German requests in the ba ba ba. Here's a question for you. What Beatles song do you think, I think, might have been influenced by some of that German Hamburg, Grosse Freiheit, Reeperbahn area? Ba 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 ba.
If you're thinking about something in 3/4 time or 6/8
Yeah,
time,
absolutely.
you thinking of I Me Mine, maybe?
There you go. There's one right there. I was thinking if we can work it out.
Huh. Well,
Life is very short,
yeah.
but there's no time for fussing and German pub, right? I don't know. They listen to so much different stuff, man. Diversified.
That idea to slow down the song and do it in a waltz for a few bars there, Paul said that came from George Harrison. So,
wow.
Yeah.
And then you got George Martin too. He had so much musical knowledge and playing those complex piano parts and the string arrangements, man, and Eleanor Rigby and just the musicality. Are you a Rick Beato fan?
I've seen your interviews on Rick's channel, and I've seen some of his other interviews.
Have you seen his Eleanor Rigby one?
No, I saw his interview with Peter Frampton.
Yeah,
great
that was
interview.
A great interview. You'd love his Eleanor Rigby one. And Rick is a great friend. And Rick is one of those guys with a doctorate degree in theory, phenomenal guitar player. I was a little stumped on what that opening chord was to A Hard Day's Night. So I asked Rick and I asked Grant Geisman. Grant Geisman is a wonderful session guitarist in LA. He played on that song by Chuck Mangione. Do, 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 do,
Feels so good.
Feels so good. And that ripping solo. And they both said the exact same thing. They spelled the chord out that George played, the one that John played, the bass note Paul played, and there was a piano in there too. And the Rick's got a show on that. And I just love that kind of theory. I wish I knew more. I went to music school for 4 years and got a music ed degree. But as a drummer that played trumpet, I mean, I was outclassed by all these piano players and guitar players that played chords since they were in the 5th grade.
Yeah, but
I was better at rhythmic dictation than they were.
But you have your ears trained for the drums, especially, and you know exactly what's going on a record.
I try to. I love to transcribe too. When I was in college, I put myself through college by playing in a bunch of different top 40 bands. Before there were DJs, every time there was a party, a high school dance or a bar mitzvah or a wedding or a wake or a lobby jazz gig or a bar disco gig, there were bands, there weren't DJs. So I was charting out like 40 songs a week. And I didn't learn how to transcribe drum notation by going to college. I learned it because I needed to remember like hundreds of songs. And as a drummer, you're kind of leading the way. You're kind of signaling the next section, the dynamics, the ending, how it starts, the count off. I had a little song starter metronome. So that's kind of where I learned to transcribe. So I think that's super important for young musicians.
Yeah, I have a son who's a drummer, and he can pick out anything on a record.
How old is your son?
Born in
Why are you having to
1978.
think about this? You're thinking about how long you were married. Your wife's going to
He's 44. He's 44.
Oh,
He's
that's
my
a good year.
stepson.
That's the year I got with Ringo, 03.
Yeah.
4
So
time.
when he's in the basement and he plays the drums, and I know he's playing Beatles songs or Ringo parts, and you just hear exactly, and he plays and he's a left-handed drummer too.
What? Why
Yes.
isn't he on your show right now? Bring him in.
I'll have him on. Jeffrey.
What's his name?
Jeffrey.
Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Like Jeffrey Porcaro, one of the greats. You know Jeffrey
Yep.
Porcaro?
Yes, of course.
One of my dear friends and favorite drummers.
Yeah. But I hear what he's playing. He's playing the Ringo parts, and it makes me appreciate. And sometimes we're able to hear isolated tracks from
Yes.
what's leaked out there of what Ringo's doing. And there's certain songs like The Word
Oh,
or She Said, and it's,
oh,
it makes you appreciate what Ringo brought to the band with those parts. It's so interesting and so musical by itself
you
without the
can't. How
band.
about all the percussion he played?
Yeah.
I mean, bongos and shakers and tambourines and timpani. Every little thing she does, boom, boom, and playing on the backs of chairs and the claps. But listen on Rubber Soul, especially to songs where he's just, you're gonna lose that girl. It's like a bongo solo.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, he does play that. What would be your favorite Ringo drum parts in a Beatles song? What would be your favorite ones?
Ones or one?
Ones. Do a few.
Okay.
Which ones stand out for you that are your
I'll
favorites?
I'll sing the beat. You see if you can guess it.
Okay. Go
You're
ahead.
gonna, you can. Come on.
Yeah, all right, go ahead.
Doom, braco, go, braco, go,
Okay.
braco, braco.
Ticket to Ride.
Dum, dum,
Come Together. Um, I'm drawing a blank. I'm losing your audio a little. Oh, Tomorrow Never Knows. But actually, you're actually right now, those are three songs that you've played with the All-Star Band when you do
What?
Frankenstein.
I thought you said Ringo parts.
Yeah, the when you're playing in the All-Star Band and you're doing Frankenstein, you do a solo there and you play those
I didn't
intros.
know where you were going with this, buddy. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. Thank you for knowing that.
yeah.
That's exactly right. I try to quote those three songs in my drum solo. And
Okay.
Edgar said, no, I know playing different beats. I can't do a good Edgar. All right, all right. I love Edgar so much. He is my brother. He and Monique are two of my best friends. I'm not making fun of Edgar. I'm saying the joy of Edgar right now. Is everybody having a good time? Hope you're all feeling good because I'm feeling pretty good myself. Anyway, he said, Greg, I said, Edgar, would you mind if I played in my drum solo as opposed to just going normal drum solo? Honey, let's go get a hamburger. What if I play a bunch of songs that people might know, classic rock grooves? He goes, well, that might go over really good at like a drum festival, but do you think that people would like that? And I said, I guarantee they'll go nuts. And we're playing Toronto, and I'm going to go. And Steve Lukather's over there, and he's playing, honky tonk woman parts, and we're an American band, and Tomorrow Never Knows, Ticket to Ride, and people are going nuts because they love those drum beats. So thank you for noticing that. Yeah, I played Ticket to Ride. I played Tomorrow Never Knows. I do Come Together, and then I do the end drum solo. But then I also do a little bit of Manic Depression. It changes night to night. Manic Depression, Mitch Mitchell, Neil Peart, my good friend. What a loss. YYZ. And I do Don Brewer, American Band, Gene Krupa, Sing, Sing, Sing. Wipeout by the Safaris or the Ventures, whichever side. But anyway, Honky Tonk Woman.
Sure.
So those drum parts are, and I teach a lot. I take a lot of lessons, but I give a lot of lessons. And it's surprising how many drum students from high school and college age, and even in their 20s that are pros, they don't know those classic beats. I'm going, come on, guys. They do know this one, though. You ready?
Good. Uh-oh. I'm not recognizing.
That's Smells Like Teen Spirit, Dave Grohl.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Now when you're doing it with the band, I recognize it. And don't you do Good Times, Bad Times too?
Oh, I think I threw that in there. I threw the Immigrant Song, which is Iron
Hmm.
Man. And little Tom Sawyer.
Uh-huh. I'm telling you, that is a highlight of
Oh,
this last tour to see
oh,
you do that. I love that going back and forth
I
between
didn't
you and
hear you say
Edgar.
that. Say that. I didn't quite get what did you say?
It's the highlight of the tour. I'm serious about it. I
No,
mean, yes,
no,
I
it's just a
love it.
fun time.
I think, it's worth the price of admission just for Frankenstein alone.
Well,
Because
Edgar's Frankenstein, like Ringo says, a musical moment, right? Man, oh man, Edgar, there's nobody like Edgar.
yep,
In the
absolutely.
laboratory, once upon a time, at work was a doctor named Frankenstein.
Yeah.
It's fun talking to you, man.
Yeah. Just tell me a little bit, if you can, about what each member of the All-Stars brings, because, you know, every time I see this band or any of the bands, I just appreciate them more and more. I mean, I love Steve Lukather to death as a guitar player. Edgar Winter, all the instruments that he plays. Colin Hay, one of the greatest voices to me. I love Hamish Stewart a lot, and this new release really captures this band, although that's with Greg Raleigh. Edgar replaced Greg, and Warren Ham, who doesn't get nearly enough credit because he's all over the place playing
He's
so many instruments.
and he's been in so many bands. Years ago, he was in Kansas. He was in Blood Rock. He was in Olivia Newton-John's band. Toto now. He's one of the only people in the world that can say, Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore.
That's good. Very good. And he does such a great job at singing the high parts on the Toto songs.
He does. And before Warren, our dear, dear friend and our musical director,
Mm,
who just can't be there because he's with Billy Joel full time, is
right.
Mark Rivera.
Mhm.
And Mark, that same really amazing high tenor, he knows Beatles songs. He knows every song. He was in Foreigner. He's played with Billy Joel, with Ringo, with John Lennon. He was in John Lennon.
Sure, I
Like,
know.
yeah, I know you know, but I'm telling the people that don't know. So, but he has perfect pitch, and he can just go, oh, what you need is do a B flat. You're singing the minor third here, and we need this harmony. I mean, for harmonies and for the vibe, he's the most incredible musical director I have ever worked with. And his voice, that tenor, that soulful tenor like Warren, soulful sax, tenor sax and soprano sax, and percussion and some keys. And Mark Rivera also plays some guitar, some acoustic guitar and stuff too. So yeah, Mark Rivera and Warren Ham. There's not a third in the world that can do those things. Those are the
Right.
two guys. If there is a third guy or gal, I want to know about them, because they're just super MVPs. And so yeah, and Lukather, we love his songs. We love his singing, his guitar player. I'm playing a gig with him next week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, at a great place called The Baked Potato. We're doing our Christmas show. Jeff Babko, Jorgen Carlson, and Steve Lukather and I. It's a band called Nerve Bundle. It's a fun jazz rock gig, But anyway, we also love his humor. He's an extremely funny guy. Ringo is so hilarious. I mean, so sharp, just sharp as a whip. And Ringo is all about peace and love, man. He doesn't just say it, he lives it. He's not thinking about what happened yesterday or what's going to happen tomorrow. He's right here with Ken on Zoom, listening to every word you're saying, not cutting you off like a lot of people do these days. He's listening and he's talking. But yeah, Colin Hay, his songs, his voice, his guitar playing, and Hamish Stewart, his voice and his bass playing and his guitar playing, and those great AWB songs. And Luke plays bass on some of those. And Edgar, the multi-instrumentalist, the keyboards, the remote keyboards, the alto saxophone, the vocals, the soulful vocals, and then the percussion. Timbales on Frankenstein. And one of the greatest honors I've had in my life is that Edgar did a tribute to his brother called Brother Johnny.
Right.
And I think I played on 17 of the songs. And the 18th song, another guy played drums. I don't know if you know who that is. On the 18th. Ringo.
Yeah.
And that's the coolest song on the album because Ringo's on it. But anyway, Edgar is such a soulful guy. So that band, Ringo calls it the best 1-800 band in the land. You go to that show, as you know, Ken, it's like seeing 7 different bands, you know, 5
Mhm. I've often said that's the great thing. I have very eclectic tastes. I love diversity. And one of my favorite of all the All-Star bands was the one that had Ian Hunter and Howard Jones and Sheila E. and Greg Lake.
Absolutely.
You know, when you're going from In the Court of the Crimson King to The Glamorous Life, and
Absolutely.
that's you know, it's I love the fact that it all works with one band, and it's the same thing with this band. And in talking about this concert live at the Greek Theater, man, does this band shine on the Santana stuff. I
Oh,
mean,
Greg Raleigh, such an incredible
uh,
singer, organ player, songwriter. You know, he started Santana with Carlos. Then he went on and took Neil Sean and started Journey. And he's just such a musical force. I love Greg so much, man. And I got to say, the reason, you know, sitting back on the drum riser, you kind of see new members come in and meet for the first time. And in the, what has it been now since 08, 14 years that I've been in the All-Star Band, or 19 years since Ringo and the Roundheads, I have to say, back when the Roundheads were our musical director and great, amazing leader, Mark Hudson, my brother Matt, Mark Hart on keyboards, Steve Dudas and Gary Burr on guitars. That was an incredible band of musicians. All the All-Star bands from my first one in 08, which had Billy Squier and Edgar and Hamish playing bass, but not doing his songs then, but Gary Wright, and then Richard Page, and then Todd Rundgren, Greg Raleigh, Rick Derringer, Colin Hay, Lukather. Every one of those people are heavy musicians, singers, and artists. But there's one thing that makes it all work, is that as soon as Ringo comes on the stage, it's like, there is the guy that the buck stops right there. You know,
right.
Somebody could be talking about this and that. And when I did this, and I was like, it's just the common denominator. Like, oh my gosh, right. I'm in Ringo's All-Star Band. It's the greatest. He's the greatest.
Let me ask you a few more things. Is there anything that you learned about Ringo watching him from the side there, as a drummer, that you didn't know before?
Yeah. I learned when he's playing, and this is on his master class, you got 2 crash cymbals right there. Most people, they hit crashes and they go, psh. When they want them to stop, they want to hear somebody talking, they go like this, and they mute them. I've never in my life seen a drummer. I'm going to hit my crashes, and then somebody's going to say, Edgar Winter's going to say, hey, Ringo, I'm wondering about the second verse. Here we go. Psh. Hey, Ringo. He takes his stick and he puts it on the bottom of the cymbal and he holds it up and it mutes the cymbals. Where did you come up with that? I've never seen a drummer do that in my life. He plays matched grip, which means that both hands have the same grip, as opposed to traditional grip, like Charlie Watts or like Buddy Rich, you know, Gene Krupa, Max Roach, Tony Williams, blah, blah, blah. Tony Williams did both. But anyway, Ringo's match grip. But if you watch the master class, you'll see a clip that we found. It's black and white, and they're out in the field. We need protection, Scotland Yard, protection and help. Right. They call them the tanks, and they got the helmets, and they're out there. And they're what song were they doing? Do you remember during that scene?
Oh gosh.
We said goodbye.
Okay. The night before.
So Ringo, on the night before outtake, while there's lip syncing, he just takes his snare and starts going like this. And the drum tech, Jeff Jonas, and I are looking at him going, what is that? How are you going traditional grip with your fingers and getting the snare to go? And we can't figure it out. Jeff's a good drummer. I think I'm a pretty good drummer. I can't figure that out. And I can even play jazz stuff like that. Those are 2 huge things I've learned. But I mentioned the playing in the middle of a snare on the verse, the rim shots on the choruses, washing the crash. I mean, I always knew that he washed the hi-hats. Ringo doesn't play his hi-hat like this. He goes, it's been a hard day. When he's on the cymbals, he's washing, painting. It's not, he's not a straight up and down guy. That's part of the swing. But being 5 feet away, like, whoa. And sometimes he just wants to really get us. So with Jeff Jonas, our drum tech, the guy that's been there since the All-Starr Band started in '89, he'll look over at us and he'll go, shh.
With Match Grip, isn't that years ago when I interviewed you? I could have sworn you talked about that with me where the song Help is concerned, right? When there are those
Right.
very fast, I guess there's 16th notes,
They are
you know,
16th,
yeah, and he had to do them in both
20
hands at the
right.
same time.
And we call those double stops, like because of percussionists, like marimba players, 4-mallet marimba. When you go bop, 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 those are double stops. He does that in Ticket to Ride. She's got a ticket to ride.
Yeah.
And Help. Very hard to do. Some idiots that say, well, Ringo doesn't really have fast hands. They're idiots. They don't know. To go is the same as going. Very hard to do. But if you watch Masterclass, you'll get a little insight on that.
Okay. I wanted to ask you, as far as the set list is concerned, and I want you to know I am so grateful that Ringo is out there, that he's doing anything, that he's healthy, and that he's given us shows. He doesn't have to do this anymore, but
Right.
he's doing it because he loves doing it, and
He
he loves
loves
the
it.
concept of this band. But those of us who have studied his catalog thoroughly would love to hear other songs in the set list.
Well, we
In
added one.
particular,
Which one did we add?
on this last tour.
This is a big one. He never has done it before.
Well, you mean in this last tour was Johnny Be Good?
Well, that's an
That,
Edgar song. What
yeah.
Ringo song did we add?
Oh, Octopus's Garden.
Boom. That's a big one for us.
Okay.
What a blast playing that. And you know what I have in my headphones? George counting that off. One,
Oh.
2, 3, 4. I just have that because Rich, our guy, has that in there so I can really feel like, okay, here's where the tempo is. And then he starts it with that. And then I go from there. But he's got George's voice in there. I'm just in my in-ears, I'm going, thank you, God, for the Beatles. Thank you, God, for music. Man, this was a lot of fun, Ken.
I know, but there's a couple of songs I just wanted to bring up because in the last few years, like for example, Colin Hay wrote a song called "What's My Name." What a perfect song to do because Ringo always uses that phrase in concert. He's in the band. Is there any ever discussion of that? The same thing with Steve Lukather writing the song "We're on the Road Again." What a perfect song to do being on the road. Do they ever talk about that?
My only thing I can say about that is there's two people, Ringo and Mark Rivera. So you should ask Mark that question because I'm not the guy to answer that.
Okay.
That's a Mark Rivera question.
Okay. I've interviewed Mark before and it's great talking to him with the Fest for Beatle fans. And he would
that would
tell
be a
me,
really good question for me.
He would tell
People
me
are always
that,
asking, how come you don't play Good Night? That would be a great song to close with.
if you notice, Ringo never does any of his ballads. He never does slow songs.
He likes the energy though,
Yeah.
So
the only top 10 hit that Ringo had in his solo career in the United States that he hasn't done live is Only You. And that's a ballad. So there you go.
Mark Rivera.
Okay. One last question here. I know that he always introduces you as Gregg Bissonette. What's the deal with that?
Okay, so the first show we did back in '03 with the Roundheads, he asked me, because there's a W.C. Fields movie called It's a Gift. And W.C. Fields was a Midwest grocery store owner that left the Midwest to drive his Model T or whatever it was to California because he got a letter that he was inheriting an orange grove. And every time W.C. Fields would pull up to a filling station, they'd say, "Oh, Mr. Bissonette, would you like a full tank?" And he'd say, "Oh, it's Bissonette, Bissonette, Bissonette," right? And Ringo lived in Monaco, and he knows a lot about the French culture, and so when you've got a name like Bissonette, technically, just because I'm a family history nut, whenever a name ends in E-T-T-E, it's et. But if it ends in E-T or E-T-T, it's A. But anyway, my name would technically in France be Bissonette. So anyway, I'm at the first rehearsal, first gig in '03 with the Roundheads, and Ringo says, Gregg, would you rather be Bissonette, 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 Bissonette? I said, Ringo, whatever you want to call me, you call me. I'm just blown away that you're calling my name, right?
Uh-huh.
So he got into the on drums, holding us all together. Gregg Bissonette. And I just go, thank you, Jesus.
Well, there's a lot of people that, I bet, think that's how your last name is pronounced now.
Well, then it is from now. That's my new name. I'm changing it. I also play in Spinal Tap, and my name with Spinal Tap is Skippy Scuffleton. I'm not in the movie, but I've been in since like '98 in the band. We played Live Earth on Ringo's birthday, 7707, 80,000 people. And Genesis with Phil Collins started off, Madonna ended, but the Foo Fighters, the Chili Peppers, Metallica, all these bands, and we played, and every bass player came out and played bass on Big Bottom. But my name is Skippy Scuffleton, so I got Skippy Scuffleton and Bissonette. I'm gonna make that sink in. Thank you, Ken.
Before we go, do you want to tell the folks you got a new YouTube channel that you're working on?
Yeah, starting the first of the year, just look up YouTube with my name. Some people have so and so as their name, and this is the name of the YouTube channel. I'm just gonna go with my name. There's no other YouTube name, just my name, and I'm filming right now a lot of YouTubes, not just about drumming, but about music and about being a musician. There's chapters about how to get a gig, how to be in a band, how to just, I don't want to give it away now, but if you could get your listeners starting around the first of the year to maybe the second or third of the year, to start watching and subscribing, please, to my YouTube channel. That would be wonderful.
Okay,
Like and subscribe.
I'll be watching that, and now I got to watch the Ringo Masterclass too.
Good man, Ken. Thank you for this fun interview.
Thank you for being here, and this place is your home anytime you want it.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Mi casa es su casa.
All right. Thank you, Gregg.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of you for watching, and we'll see you next time.